In the mid-1960s, an unsettling presence began to loom on NATO radar screens. Something unprecedented was soaring through the skies, an enigmatic Soviet fighter jet that seemed to defy the laws of aviation, climbing higher and faster than anything previously recorded. Western observers dubbed it the Foxbat, known formally as the MiG-25. Whispers and rumors cascaded through military corridors, claiming it could reach a staggering Mach 3, capable of intercepting American bombers before they even crossed into Soviet airspace. At the CIA, the atmosphere was tense, yet tinged with skepticism. Some analysts chuckled, convinced that this new aircraft was just another instance of Soviet bravado, more smoke and mirrors than genuine threat. They weren't ready to concede defeat to what they perceived as mere propaganda. This conflict served as a reminder of the deep-seated rivalry and the psychological warfare at play, raising the stakes in an already charged Cold War landscape. Throughout the late 1960s, US intelligence agencies found themselves in a frenzy, grappling with a mystery that echoed deeper fears about national security. Here they were, poring over photographs from spy satellites, and what did they see? A massive plane, striking with its twin engines and thick wings, looming ominously in the skies. The CIA engineers, working tirelessly behind closed doors, began to piece together what they believed was a formidable adversary, designed for agility and air superiority, sort of like a high-tech muscle car for the skies, a potential rival to the F-15, which was still under development. As they delved deeper, reports started rolling in with mouth-watering estimates, a staggering speed of 2,000 miles per hour and an altitude that could reach beyond 80,000 feet. Just envision that, an aircraft capable of outpacing a speeding bullet and soaring so high it could almost touch the edge of space. You can't help but feel the shiver of anxiety. The Pentagon, with its fingers on the panic button, scrambled into action. Congressional hearings erupted, and billions were funneled into developing next-generation fighters and state-of-the-art radar systems. There was a palpable sense of urgency, one that rattled the halls of power. Yet amidst this cacophony of fear and financial commitment, the CIA analysts remained a voice of skepticism, raising the question that lingered unanswered. Could Soviet metallurgy actually support such technological feats? Their argument was compelling in its simplicity. If this aircraft truly managed speeds of Mach 3, it would, quite literally, melt in the sky. It's a bit like when you're pushing an old car to its limits. Sure, you might reach a record speed, but at what cost? The sparks and smoke might just be a warning that it's all too good to be true. This miscalculation led to a pivotal crossroads for the intelligence agencies and for the security landscape of the nation. As they balanced on this tightrope of speculation and fear, one question loomed larger than any radar. How could they prepare for a threat that might not even exist? In 1967, the world watched as the Soviet Union unveiled a marvel of engineering at a military parade in Domodedovo. Amidst the pomp and spectacle, something extraordinary pierced through the sky. The MiG-25, a stunning blend of power and technology, ascended rapidly, climbing vertically into the clouds like a silver rocket. The sound of its engines reverberated through the air, and the crowd gasped in collective awe. For the Western diplomats present, that roar was more than just noise. It was a signal of change. Reports quickly zipped back to Washington, the urgency palpable in their words, "It's real." The implications were staggering. NATO pilots, amidst whispers of threat and new tactics, sensed that air combat was about to enter uncharted territory. This was not just another aircraft. Yet behind the scenes at Langley, the atmosphere was different. Agents pored over grainy photographs, scrutinizing every angle, every detail of the enigmatic Foxbat. Despite the public's growing fascination, where the aircraft was hailed as a legend and a tangible symbol of Soviet might, the assessments at the CIA were cooler, branding it a paper tiger. The contrasts couldn't be starker. On one side, a flying icon, sparking imaginations and fears. On the other, a calculated skepticism, rooted in intelligence and strategy. The MiG-25 wasn't just an aircraft, it was a reflection of the tensions of the Cold War, a reminder of how perception and reality often dance at odds. Lieutenant Viktor Belenko flew in the heart of the Soviet Air Defense Force, a man of honor caught between the weight of his duty and the chilling reality of the MiG-25 he piloted. Born in 1947, he had spent his youth enveloped in a haze of propaganda, painted visions of invincibility and triumph in the skies, crafted for a nation poised on the brink of nuclear paranoia. As he ascended through the ranks, he became a stalwart guardian of Soviet airspace, trusting that the technology under his command was as formidable as the tales spun around it. However, the air wasn't just filled with munitions and dogma. Belenko felt the immutable sky press around him with an honesty he couldn't ignore. The MiG-25, often vaunted as a weapon of unparalleled might, began to reveal its weaknesses through the lens of experience. Yes, it was blisteringly fast. Its speed could outpace almost anything in the world, but beneath that roar of thrust was an undeniable truth. The Foxbat was an incredibly heavy machine, lumbering despite its ferocious velocity. As Belenko scoured the skies, he noticed the limitations all too clearly. The radar system was primitive, almost laughable when stacked against Western advancements. It was like bringing a knife to a gunfight. The missiles, touted as cutting-edge, often failed to perform. Unreliable, they compromised the very essence of his missions. Every time he took off, the grim realization washed over him. The MiG-25 lacked the capacity to adapt to the complexities of aerial combat. He understood that the aircraft was not designed to outmaneuver, to dance in the sky like a nimble angel. Instead, its purpose became painfully clear. It was engineered as a blunt instrument, intended to chase high-altitude American bombers down straight lines at blistering speeds. Belenko began to see the plane as a sprinting giant, impressive and dangerous, yes, but ultimately single-minded in its focus. This epiphany gnawed at him, instilling a mix of pride and disillusionment. How could a man like him, trained to uphold glory, align himself with something that could not evolve, that existed to merely skim the surface of what air combat could be? It was this internal battle that would lead him to take an extraordinary leap, a choice that would redefine his loyalties and transform the narrative of his life forever. And with that, he started to scheme, to contemplate an unprecedented way to reveal the truths hidden beneath layers of Cold War rhetoric. On September 6, 1976, amidst the backdrop of Cold War tensions, Viktor Belenko found himself in a situation that would be etched in history. While flying a routine training mission from Chuguyevka Air Base, a thought suddenly struck him. What if he could escape the clutches of the Soviet regime? With a surge of adrenaline, he veered off course, descending to treetop level and made a beeline for the Sea of Japan. As his MiG-25 sliced through the air, something monumental was happening below. Japanese radar picked up this unexpected intruder almost immediately, and F-4 Phantoms were scrambled into the skies, their pilots unaware of how close they were to the unfolding drama. Meanwhile, Belenko pressed on, fully aware that each passing second mattered. He was just minutes away from freedom, but also from danger. Finally, he spotted a small civilian runway on the island of Hokkaido. With fuel reserves alarmingly low, he made a risky landing. As the engines roared and the aircraft thrummed, a group of local farmers rushed toward the jet, their faces a mix of disbelief and awe at this sudden turn of events. In the blink of an eye, news of the defection was racing through channels to the CIA. A Soviet pilot had just swapped a life of confinement for the exhilarating promise of freedom, with the most advanced aircraft in the world right beside him. Belenko's choice was not just a personal escape, it sent shockwaves through the geopolitical landscape. challenging perceptions and stirring questions that had enduring implications for both superpowers. The CIA's inspection of the MiG-25 marked a pivotal moment in the Cold War, a genuine shock to American intelligence. Engineers traveled to Japan, driven by the sheer anticipation of piecing together what they thought would be a game-changing Soviet marvel. Imagine being in their shoes, unboxing what they believed to be a revolutionary aircraft, only to discover something far more complex and astonishing. As they disassembled the MiG-25, they were taken aback by its impressive engines, specifically designed for explosive speed over short distances. It became clear that this wasn't a fighter meant to outmaneuver or outplay. It was built to overwhelm for brief moments. The massive engines, capable of blinding acceleration, didn't lend themselves to sustained flight. Think about it. While we often romanticize speed, these engineers were faced with the reality that sometimes brute force can be misleading. And then there's the airframe, a revelation that challenged many preconceived notions. Rather than the feared titanium construction, they found it crafted almost entirely from nickel steel. This choice might seem old-fashioned, but it was a testament to Soviet engineering that prioritized durability over cutting-edge materials. The radar system? Surprisingly retro, employing vacuum tubes instead of modern circuitry. Though outdated, these tubes provided resilience in extreme conditions, even standing strong against potential nuclear blasts. It was a staggering example of intelligence triumphing over advanced technology. However, the ultimate realization hit home. The MiG-25 wasn't the superfighter the CIA had dreaded. Instead of a nimble predator in the skies, they uncovered a brute force interceptor, engineered more for shock and awe than for air superiority. This aircraft was designed for panic, for when the stakes were high and time was short, rather than the strategic dogfighting they had feared. The findings struck a chord, illustrating how perception often shapes reality in the high-stakes game of international espionage. What was initially heralded as a looming threat turned out to be more of a blunt instrument, a reminder that even the most intimidating adversaries have their vulnerabilities. When the news of Viktor Belenko's defection reached the Kremlin, chaos erupted like a volcano ready to blow. High-ranking officials scrambled through dimly lit corridors, their faces a mix of disbelief and fury. For them, Belenko's move was not just a betrayal, it was an embarrassment of historic proportions. A pilot, a soldier of the Soviet Union, had turned against his own, taking with him the crown jewel of Soviet aviation, the top-secret MiG-25. As Belenko's family faced interrogation by the KGB, you could almost feel the chilling effect of that Cold War linger in the air. Imagine being arrested not for your own actions, but for simply being related to someone who had broken away from the system. Those long hours of questioning would break the spirit of many, and the fear of repercussions loomed large over every citizen. The Soviet media, usually a powerful mouthpiece, fell silent. Their failure to communicate left the public in a fog of confusion, only adding to the sense of betrayal that ran deep among the ranks of military leaders. As whispers of purges began circulating, it became clear that heads would roll. The Air Defense Command was particularly devastated. A once proud bastion of military pride was now humiliated, its prized secret and technology exposed. In the halls of power, the Soviet propaganda machine sought to spin the narrative. They crafted tales of staged defection, suggesting Belenko had been kidnapped, trying desperately to salvage the shattered image of the invulnerable Soviet Empire. But behind the closed doors of military strategy meetings, the truth was evident. The Americans now had access to everything about the MiG-25, laying bare the vulnerabilities of a jet that had long been regarded as untouchable. For those who lived through this upheaval, the defection marked a poignant moment. The myth of the invincible MiG-25 was not just dismantled, it became a symbol of vulnerability and the shifting tides of a world teetering on the brink of change. Belenko's leap into the unknown resonated far beyond his own fate. It struck at the heart of a powerful narrative that had held sway over millions. As the dust settled, the lesson became clear. Pride comes before a fall, and sometimes the bravest act is the one that shocks the world. As analysts delved into the findings surrounding the MiG-25, a palpable sense of relief swept through the US military ranks. Here was a moment that affirmed their own design intuition. Agility, precision, and sustained performance truly reigned supreme over sheer speed. The MiG-25, while intimidating on paper, quickly revealed its limitations. That validation sparked an inspiring surge within the Air Force, especially with the F-15 Eagle having entered service just a few years earlier in 1976. Pilots began to feel a sense of pride and confidence in their machines. The F-15, with its incredible maneuverability and advanced avionics, edged out the Foxbat in every conceivable way. Imagine being a pilot during this time. You'd have a fighter jet that could outmatch adversaries in dogfights and even at high altitudes, an exhilarating realization for anyone strapped into the cockpit. With exhilarating acceleration and cutting-edge technology, the F-15 became a beacon of American air superiority. At the same time, Lockheed's engineers, immersed in high-stakes projects like the SR-71 and the emerging stealth programs, tapped into lessons learned from the MiG's radar technology. They analyzed its primitive design and, rather ironically, used its shortcomings to fuel their innovation. Drawing inspiration from what could easily be seen as a failure, these engineers accelerated their own advancements. It's a storytelling moment in military engineering, where one nation's missteps spur another's leaps forward. In essence, the MiG-25 served as a catalyst, pushing American ingenuity into overdrive. It became clear that the Soviet miscalculations were not just tactical errors, they were lessons that had monumental implications for future aerial combat strategy. An awakening that hadn't just improved technology, but had also made the entire Air Force more united. In the face of competition, every engineer, pilot, and strategist was now more determined than ever to stay one step ahead. Viktor Belenko's life took a dramatic turn after his defection. Granted asylum in the United States, he stepped into a new identity, leaving behind the oppressive shadows of the Soviet regime. Landing a job as an aerospace consultant, Belenko found a sense of purpose in providing insight into the very aircraft he once flew. His journey didn't just mark his personal escape, it unraveled the myth of Soviet invincibility, forcing a redesign of the MiG-25 and paving the way for the MiG-31. This wasn't just a military setback for the USSR, it was a psychological blow that shattered the illusion of strength that had cloaked the Iron Curtain. Belenko's story revealed the underlying fragility of a superpower masquerading as untouchable. Today, we remember him not only as a defector, but as a beacon of courage, highlighting how one man's bravery can shift the tide of history and expose the vulnerabilities hidden within an empire.